Hi, boys and girls. Thanks for joining me today. Hopefully I have some big boys and girls watching too. If you're just starting this video, these are the Lloyd Alexander Book of 3 chapters that I'm reading. If this is the first Book of 3 book that you're seeing, or the first chapter you're joining us for, you need to get out of this video and go back to the first one. I've already read 3 chapters and would like you to start from the beginning. So make sure you've read chapters 1, 2, and 3 before you start with us today. As we left off, Taran had just encountered a really strange creature in the woods named Gurgi. And if you'd like some extra points for our Built on Book Club or for our House Award program, draw me a picture of Taran or draw me a picture of what you think Gurgi looks like. Email it to me or send it to me, and I'll award you some points for your house. Hopefully you're enjoying the book so far. These are some of my favorite books as a kid. I really think you're going to like it as they pick up. We're just starting to get to some of the more exciting moments. We join at chapter 4, which is called The Gwythaints. Mellingar bore them swiftly through the fringe of trees lining Great Avern's sloping banks. They dismounted and hurried on foot in the direction Gurgi had indicated. Near a jagged rock, Gwydion halted and gave a cry of triumph. In a patch of clay, Henwen's tracks showed as plainly as if they had been carved. "Good for Gurgi," exclaimed Gwydion. "I hope he enjoys his crunchings and munchings. Had I known he would guide us so well, I would have given him an extra share." "Yes, she crossed here," he went on, "and we shall do the same." Gwydion led Mellingar forward. The air had suddenly grown cold and heavy. The restless Avern ran gray, slashed and white streaks. Clutching Mellingar's saddle horn, Taran stepped gingerly from the bank. Gwydion strode directly into the water. Taran, thinking it easier to get a little bit wet at a time, hung back as much as he could, until Mellingar lunged ahead, carrying him with her. His feet sought the river bottom, but he stumbled and splashed, while icy waves swirled up to his neck. The current grew stronger, coiling like a gray serpent around Taran's legs. The bottom dropped away sharply. Taran lost his footing and found himself wildly dancing over nothing as the river seized him greedily. Mellingar began to swim, her strong legs keeping her afloat and in motion, but the current swung her around. She collided with Taran and forced him under the water. "Let go of the saddle," Gwydion shouted above the torrent. "Swim clear of her." Water flooded Taran's ears and nostrils. With every gasp, the river poured into his lungs. Gwydion struck out after him, soon overtook him, seized him by the hair, and drew him toward the shallows. Can you imagine being drug out of the water by your hair as you were kind of drowning? He heaved the dripping, coughing Taran onto the bank. Mellingar, reaching shore a little further upstream, trotted down to join them. Gwydion looked sharply at Taran. "I told you to swim clear. Are all assistant pig keepers deaf as well as stubborn?" "I don't know how to swim," Taran cried, his teeth chattering violently. "Then why did you not say so before we started across?" Gwydion asked angrily. I was sure I could learn," Taran protested. "As soon as I came to do it. If Mellingar hadn't sat on me—" "You must learn to answer for your own folly," said Gwydion. "As for Mellingar, she is wiser now than you can ever hope to become, even should you live to be a man, which seems more and more unlikely." Gwydion swung into the saddle and pulled up the soaked, bedraggled Taran. Mellingar's hooves clicked over the stones. Taran, snuffling and shivering, looked toward the waiting hills. High above the blue, 3-winged shapes wheeled and gilded. Gwydion, whose eyes were everywhere at once, caught sight of them instantly. "Gwythaints!" he cried, and turned Mellingar sharply to the right. The abrupt change of direction and Mellingar's heaving burst of speed threw Taran off balance. His legs flew up and he landed flat on the pebble-strewn bank. Gwydion reined in Mellingar immediately. While Taran struggled to his feet, Gwydion seized him like a sack of meal and hauled him to Mellingar's back. The Gwythaints, which, at a distance, had seemed no more than dry leaves in the wind, grew larger and larger as they plunged toward horse and riders. Downward they swooped, their great black wings driving them ever faster. Mellingar clattered up the riverbank. The Gwythaints screamed above. At the line of trees, Gwydion thrust Taran from the saddle and leapt down. Dragging him along, Gwydion dropped to the earth under an oak tree spreading branches. The glittering wings beat against the foliage. Taran glimpsed curving beaks and talons merciless as daggers. He cried out in terror and hid his face as the Gwythaints veered off and swooped again. The leaves rattled in their wake. The creatures swung upward, hung poised against the sky for an instant, then climbed swiftly and sped westward. White-faced and trembling, Taran ventured to raise his head. Gwydion strove to the riverbank and stood watching the Gwythaints' flight. Taran made his way to his companion's side. "I had hoped this would not happen," Gwydion said. His face was dark and grave. "Thus far, I've been able to avoid them." Taran said nothing. He had clumsily fallen off Mellingar at the moment when speed counted most. At the oak, he had behaved like a child. He waited for Gwydion's reprimand, but the warrior's green eyes followed the dark specks. "Sooner or later they would have found us," Gwydion said. "They are Aran's spies and messengers, the eyes of Annavin, they are called. No one stays long hidden from them. We are lucky they were only scouting and not on a blood hunt." He turned away as the Gwythaints at last disappeared. "Now they fly back to their iron cages in Annavin," he said. "Aran himself will have news of us before the day ends, and he will not be idle." "If only they hadn't seen us," Taran moaned. "There's no use regretting what has happened," said Gwydion, as they set out again. "One way or another, Aran would have learned of us. I have no doubt he knew the moment I rode from Cerdathal. The Gwythaints are not his only servants." "Well, I think they must be the worst," Taran said, quickening his pace to keep up with Gwydion. "Far from it," Gwydion said. "The errand of the Gwythaints is less to kill than to bring information. For generations they have been trained in this. Aran understands their language, and they are in his power from the moment they leave the egg. Nevertheless, they are creatures of flesh and blood, and a sword can answer them." "There are others to whom a sword means nothing," Gwydion said. "Among them, the Cauldron-born, who serve Aran as warriors." "Are they not men?" Taran asked. "They were once," replied Gwydion. "They are the dead whose bodies Aran steals from their resting places in the Long Barrows. It is said he steeps them in a cauldron to give them life again, if it can be called life. Like death, they are forever silent, and their only thought is to bring others to the same bondage. Aran keeps them as his guards in Annavin, for their power wanes the longer and farther they be from their master. Yet from time to time, Aran sends certain of them outside Annavin to perform his most ruthless tasks. These Cauldron-born are utterly without mercy or pity," Gwydion continued, "for Aran has worked still greater evil upon them. He has destroyed their remembrance of themselves as living men. They have no memory of tears or laughter or sorrow or loving kindness. Among all Aran's deeds, this one is the cruelest." After much searching, Gwydion discovered Henwen's tracks once more. They led over a barren field, then to a shallow ravine. "Here they stop," he said, frowning. "Even on stony ground there should be some trace, but I can see nothing." Slowly and painstakingly, he quartered the land on either side of the ravine. The weary and discouraged Taran could barely force himself to put one foot in front of the other, and he was glad the dusk obliged Gwydion to halt. Gwydion tethered Mellingar in a thicket. Taran sank to the ground and rested his head in his hands. "She has disappeared too completely," said Gwydion, bringing provisions from the saddlebags. "Many things could have happened. Time is too short to ponder each one." "What can we do then?" Taran asked fearfully. "Is there no way to find her?" "The surest search is not always the shortest," said Gwydion. "And we may need the help of other hands before it is done." There is an ancient dweller in the foothills of Eagle Mountains. His name is Medwin, and it is said he understands the hearts and ways of every creature in Prydian. He, if anyone, should know where Henwin may be hiding. If we can find him, Taran began. You are right in saying if, Gwydion answered. I have never seen him. Others have sought him and failed. We should have only faint hope, but that is better than none at all. A wind had risen, whispering among the black clusters of trees. From a distance came the lonely baying of hounds. Gwydion sat upright, tense as a bowstring. Is it the Horned King? Cried Taran. Has he followed us this closely? Gwydion shook his head. No hound's bell like those saved the pack of Gwyn the Hunter, and so, he mused, Gwyn too rides abroad. Another of Iran's servants? Asked Taran, his voice betraying his anxiety. Gwyn owes allegiance to a lord unknown even to me, Gwydion answered, and one perhaps greater than Iran. Gwyn the Hunter rides alone with his dogs, and where he rides, slaughter follows. He has foreknowledge of death and battle and watches from afar, making and marking the fall of warriors. Above the cry of the pack rose long, clear notes of a hunting horn. Flung across the sky, the sound pierced Taran's breast like a cold blade of terror. Yet unlike the music itself, the echoes from the hills sang less of fear than of grief. Fading, they sighed that sunlight and birds, bright mornings, warm fires, food and drink, friendship, and all good things had been lost beyond recovery. Gwydion laid a firm hand on Taran's brow. Gwyn's music is a warning, Gwydion said. Take it as a warning, for whatever profit that knowledge may be. But do not listen overmuch to the echoes. Others have done so, and have wandered hopeless ever since. So he's kind of saying, don't be too depressed by hearing Gwyn's music. Just take it as a warning and be careful. A whinny from Mellingar broke Taran's sleep. As Gwydion rose and went to her, Taran glimpsed a shadow dart behind a bush. He sat up quickly. Gwydion's back was turned, and in the bright moonlight, the shadow moved again. Choking back his fear, Taran leapt to his feet and plunged into the undergrowth. Thorns tore at him. He landed on something that grappled frantically. He lashed out, seized what felt like someone's head, and an unmistakable odor of wet wolfhound assailed his nose. Ah, Gurgi! Taran cried furiously. You sneaking! The creature curled into an awkward ball as Taran began shaking him. Enough, enough, Gwydion called. Do not frighten the wits out of the poor thing. Save your own life next time, Taran retorted angrily to Gwydion, while Gurgi began howling at the top of his voice. I should have known a great war leader needs no help from an assistant pig keeper. Unlike assistant pig keepers, Gwydion said gently, I scorn the help of no man, and you should know better than to jump into thorn bushes without first making sure what you'll find. Save your anger for a better purpose. He hesitated and looked carefully at Taran. Why, I believe you did think my life was in danger. If I had known it was only that stupid, silly Gurgi. The fact is you did not, Gwydion said, so I shall take the intention for the deed. You may be many other things, Taran of Caerdalban, but I see you are no coward. I offer you many thanks, he added, bowing deeply.
And what of poor Gurgi?
Howled the creature.
No thanks for him, oh no, only smackings by great lords. Not even a small mountings for helping find a piggy.
We didn't find any piggy, Taran replied angrily. And if you ask me, you know too much about the Horned King. I wouldn't be surprised if you'd gone and told him.
No! The Lord of the Great Horns pursues wise, miserable Gurging with leaping and galloping. Gurgi fears terrible smackings and whackings. He follows kindly and mighty protectors. Faithful Gurgi will not leave them, never.
And what of the Horned King? Gwydion asked quickly.
Oh, very angry,
whined Gurgi.
Wicked lords ride with him, mumblings and grumblings, because they cannot find the piggy.
Where are they now? Asked Gwydion.
Not far. They cross water, but only clever, unthanked Gurgi knows where, and they light fires with fearsome blazings.
Can you lead us to them? Gwydion asked. I would learn their plans. Gurgi whimpered questioningly.
Crunchings and munchings?
I knew he would get around to that, said Taran. Gwydion saddled Mellingar, and clinging to the shadows, they set out across the moonlit hills. Gurgi led the way, loping ahead, bent forward, his long arms dangling. They crossed one deep valley, then another, before Gurgi halted on a ridge. Below, the wide plain blazed with torches, and Taran saw a great ring of flames.
Crunchings and munchings now?
Gurgi suggested. Disregarding him, Gwydion motioned for them all to descend the slope. There was little need for silence. A deep, hollow drumming throbbed over the crowded plain. Horses whickered. There came the shouts of men and the clank of weapons. Gwydion crouched in the bracken, watching intently. Around the fiery circle, warriors on high stilts beat upraised swords against their shields. What are those men? Taran whispered. And the wicker baskets, hanging from the posts. They are the proud walkers, Gwydion answered. In a dance of battle, an ancient rite of war from the days when men were no more than savages. The baskets, another ancient custom best forgotten.
But look, there,
Gurgi said. Yes, look there, Gwydion cried suddenly. The Horned King. And there, he exclaimed, pointing to the columns of horsemen. I see the banners of Contrav Reged, the banners of Dalgledon and of Mar. All the Contravs of the south. Yes, now I understand. Before Gwydion could speak, the Horned King, bearing a torch, rode to the wicker baskets and thrust the fire into them. Flames seized the osier cages. Billows of foul smoke rose skyward. The warriors clashed their shields and shouted together with one voice. From the baskets rose the agonized screams of men. Taran gasped and turned away. We have seen enough, Gwydion ordered. Hurry, let us be gone from here. Dawn had broken when Gwydion halted at the edge of a barren field. Until now he had not spoken. Even Gurgi had been silent, his eyes round with terror. This is a part of what I have journeyed so far to learn, Gwydion said. His face was grim and pale. Aran now dares try force of arms with the Horned King as his war leader. The Horned King has raised a mighty host, and they will march against us. The sons of Dawn are ill-prepared for so powerful an enemy. They must be warned. I must return to Caerdathil immediately. From a corner of the woodland, 5 mounted warriors cantered into the field. Taran sprang up. The first horseman spurred his mount to gallop. Mellingar whinnied shrilly. The warriors faced Taran and drew their swords. So it looks like we've gotten to the point of the book where it's what I call the rising action of a story, where now things are starting to pick up and Taran has found himself truly in a problem. Before it was just, I'm missing a pig, I've left my village, I'm uncertain of my surroundings. Then it was, I've stumbled upon a strange creature and I don't know what to do with him. But now it's really become a matter of life and death for Taran. And so in chapter 5, which is called The Broken Sword, we'll find out what happens to Taran and Gwydion and Gurgi, and whether or not they find Henwen, and what's to become of the Horned King. I hope you guys are reading along. I'm just starting to receive some of your drawings, so send them my way. I look forward to reading chapter 5 with you. Stay healthy, happy, and safe. See you guys.